Welcome to a new way to level up in D&D. More classes, more customization, easier multi-classing. If you are looking for a fun twist to character progression, then you are looking for D&D skill trees. If you'd like to learn more, check the description. Otherwise, on to the video. Hello everyone and welcome back to another DST video. The winner of this vote was the Barbarian, which has got to be my favorite vanilla class in the game. It is even more improved when you bring it into my system, but I don't got much to say because this is a classic class. Let's just hop right into it. The Barbarian is a D12 hit dice character with strength as your major stat and very nicely constitution as their spell stat. That means if Barbarian is your main class, constitution will be the score that you use to determine your spell save DC and your spell attack rolls, which is a really nice stat to be using for that. Now, most spellcasters that use constitution for that, those being the shaman and oracle, are kind of balanced by the fact that their spells either are really painful to use or their hit dice are really low, like a D4. Barbarians, on the other hand, have the negativity of the fact that if you're picking up Barbarian levels because it's your main class, you can't really be using spellcasting because Rage cancels that. But there's also a way to get around this with my system as well. But let's hop right into it with the starting benefits of Barbarian. If you take this as your starting class, your main class, you will get 12 plus your constitution modifiers in hit points, 1 hit dice, proficiency in simple and martial weapons. You'll get shields, light armor, and medium armor for proficiency, and strength and constitution saving throw proficiencies, as well as choosing 2 from animal handling, athletics, intimidation, nature, perception, and survival for your skill proficiencies. And then, even if it's not being taken as your main class, but you take this as a multi-class dip or perhaps a subclass, you'll get Rage, which says, on your turn, you can enter a Rage as a bonus action. While raging, you gain the following benefits if you aren't wearing heavy armor. You have an advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws. When you make a melee weapon attack using strength, you'll add your rage damage to the damage roll, and you have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. While raging, you can't cast or concentrate on spells, and your rage lasts for 1 minute. It will end early if you are knocked unconscious, and you can also end your rage well on your turn as a bonus action. And then this is a tag on the end of it which says that when you are in a special rage type, you can spend a rage point as a bonus action to swap to a different rage type. And that'll be explained in further detail when we actually get to the special rage varieties that you can get to in the Barbarian depending on the path you take through the skill tree. You'll also notably start with 1 rage per day, which increases whenever you get a +1 rage per day feature, and you'll get +1 rage damage, which will increase whenever you get the +1 rage damage feature. This is, of course, how you'll get more rages per day, and of course how you'll be leveling up the damage on your rage damage. But for now, it just starts with 1 for each of them. And now the Barbarian is split. It's kind of a bigger class in comparison to some of the other ones we've seen, but it's kind of split into these 4 different quadrants. We've got the aggressive side on this far left. Middle left is the defensive half of the Barbarian. The right middle is kind of split between 2 other halves, and then the far right is kind of the quirky half of the Barbarian. But we're going to start with this middle left half, as it is the defensive half, and how to make your Barbarian into a super tanky character. And we'll start off by picking up Unarmored Defense. This is a classic Barbarian ability that some people don't really enjoy because it isn't so useful if you're planning on just wearing medium armor. But notably in my version, you can skip this. You don't need to take any of these defensive features if you think just having a D12 hit dice is already high enough. And notably, Rage already gives you resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage resistance. So as long as you think that's good enough, you don't need to take any more defensive features, which means that you can skip past this whole entire path to go on to be more aggressive as a Barbarian if you'd prefer. but I will explain the path, of course, because it does have some really nice features if you wanted to play a more tanky character. Starting with unarmored defense, which says that while you are not wearing any armor, your armor class equals 10 plus your dexterity modifier plus your constitution modifier. Just a nice way to have an unarmored way of fighting that really relies a lot on your constitution and dexterity, which isn't your core stat, that being strength, so it's not necessarily the best defense strategy, but it does mean that you don't need to worry about wearing armor if you didn't want to. After that, on this left half, we can grab Thick Skin, which says that whenever you gain a node in Barbarian, you gain an extra 1 hit point to add to your maximum. Now, this is notably one of the best features to pick up early if you're planning on picking it up on your Barbarian at some point, because it's quite literally most effective the sooner you pick it up. Because every node that you pick up after this node will be granting you an extra 1 hit point, which is great. Also on that path is Mindless Rage. This is a great feature to pick up if you're worried about your Barbarian at any point being mind controlled by something. It says that while you're raging, you cannot be frightened or charmed. And if you are charmed or frightened before raging, the effect will end. After that, we can pick up our first feat. Now, there are going to be quite a few feats and ability score improvements on this character because it is a very martial-based class. We can also pick up a second feat over here. Of course, you can pick these up in any order you want, but the way that I'm doing it does put 2 feats right after each other, which isn't a bad thing. There's a lot of great feats that the Barbarian can pick up. After that, we can pick up another Rage per day, and then we can grab Toughness. This node says that your max for your Constitution and Strength goes up by 2 each. This is hugely useful, like a really great buff to throw on almost any character that plans on using Constitution or Strength for anything. I mean, a Shaman with Barbarian dip just to pick up Toughness is not a bad choice. Notably, this doesn't actually increase your Strength or your Constitution by anything. You have to still get the ability score improvements to increase those stats, but this allows it to go all the way up to 22 each, which is really nice. And after that, we will grab Resistant Rage. This is another grand feature and allows almost every Barbarian to have a little bit of a bear totem Barbarian flavor in them if they feel like grabbing it. It says, select 1 extra node from this node. More can be taken later as normal. You will have resistance to the damage type taken while raging in addition to your normal rage resistance. Now this is worded a little bit weirdly. It's similar to the Sorcerer's Metamagic feature, where basically right afterwards you get to pick an extra node that's off of this one. So for example, I could, at the same time as picking up Resistant Rage, also pick up Necrotic here. And what it'll basically mean, now from now on, whenever I'm raging, I will not only take half damage from bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, I would also take half damage from Necrotic since I selected it. And then at later levels, I can pick up Fire, Cold, Acid, Radiant, and Poison. And if I do pick all of these up, then I'll have resistance to almost every damage type while raging, which is super good. It will take quite a few levels of investment because there is, I mean, you get 1 for free basically, but then after that there's 5 nodes that you have to pick up, 2 per level. That's almost 3 levels of commitment just to get this feature all the way up to its maximum capacity, but it is a super good feature if you do want to take it. Now, some people might want to go into this and, not take poison because maybe they're a dwarf or something so that they already have resistance to poison. There's a lot of ways you can work around this and kind of make it work exactly how you want, but the bottom line is you can pick this up on any Barbarian in my system instead of having to go with the Bear Totem Barbarian. Next, I want to go down the damage half of the Barbarian. This is the really aggressive side. We'll start by getting an extra rage damage. So now we'll be doing 2 damage every time we hit while raging. We then get another rage per day. And we'll take this left-hand tangent quick to pick up Brutal Critical. Now, notably in the regular Barbarian class, Brutal Critical, you get the feature 3 times and you get to keep upping the amount of it. My Barbarian doesn't have that because I felt like the feature was overall kind of a boring way to give the Barbarian better damage. So I've given them a smorgasbord of better options and more fun options. But Brutal Critical is still an option here, which says that when you land a critical hit, you add 1 extra weapon die to the damage. So if you're using a Great Axe, you get a crit on it. Instead of 2d12, it's 3d12 damage, which is pretty nice. After that, we will pick up an ability score improvement, another +1 to our rage damage, going all the way up to 3 extra damage per hit, another proficiency bonus increase, and we get retaliation, which is a really good feature on this character. It says, while raging, when you take damage from a melee weapon attack within 5 feet of you, you can use your reaction to make a melee weapon attack against that creature. This is one of the best reactionary attacks in the game, especially on a character that is going to be basically getting hit constantly. If you're planning on playing a tank, you're going to get hit a lot, and getting hit a lot means that you have a reaction attack almost every round. It's going to be super nice, and every single time you hit with that attack, it's going to be doing that rage damage also, which is super cool. Does not work against ranged opponents, unfortunately. After that, we'll grab another really iconic Barbarian feature that can be picked up as early as level 2 in Barbarian, Reckless Attack. This says that when you make an attack, you can decide to attack recklessly. Doing so gives you advantage on melee weapon attack rolls using strength during this turn, but attack rolls against you have advantage until your next turn. Now, notably, I did change the wording on this very subtly. It allows you to use Reckless Attack on anytime you make an attack, not only attacks on your turn, which just allows it to be used basically whenever you want to make an attack, you can do it recklessly. That's kind of the only change. In general, a great ability allowing you to not only crit way more often, but just hit way more often. Even if you don't have necessarily the highest hit chance, rolling with advantage almost every time is going to make you way better at hitting, and being hit is kind of what you want to do anyway. You're the tanky barbarian, you've got all the hit points. After that, we'll pick up Battle Cry. This is kind of the only battlefield control ability that the barbarian gets, but it isn't bad either. It says that you can use your action to scream a war cry, forcing all creatures you choose within 30 feet of you to make a wisdom saving throw. The DC will be 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your constitution modifier, and they'll be frightened if they fail it until they lose line of sight. Afterwards, we'll grab an ability score improvement, and then we get to pick up the wonderful extra attack, a feature that almost all martials get, and the barbarian loves to have. There is no +1 attack on the barbarians. There is no +1 attack on the skill tree of the barbarian because it already has a lot of features, but of course if you wanted to pick up that +1 attack from maybe the push feat onto a fighter or something, or perhaps you're going barbarian samurai or something, so you can pick it up in a different way, that also works pretty well. Of course, if you don't know what extra attack is, it says that whenever you take the attack action, you make 2 attacks instead of 1. After that, we can pick up another +1 to our rage damage, bringing it all the way up to 4 per attack, which is crazy extra damage already. We can grab a proficiency bonus increase over here, and I want to bring up crit rage quick because this is something that I have recommended a few times to take with the push feat on characters that aren't wanting to play barbarians. It is a really nice node to pick up, but it is a pretty far commitment, costing you 10 nodes to get to, which is almost 5 levels. That's a lot of commitment for one feature, but picking it up is a great addition. It just says that you crit on a 19 through 20 instead of just a 20. And especially useful on barbarians who have advantage on almost every attack. But again, taking the push feat all the way up to 3rd level can get you this without having to take any commitment into barbarian, which is a great feature to just pick up in general. The other half of this branch brings us to our first special rage variety. Now basically what the special rage varieties are is there's a few of them on this stat sheet, and basically what it says is that when you go into a rage, you can pick a special rage variety to go into as well, but while you're in that, you can't be in multiple at the same time, basically. So you have to pick which one you want to go into, and then if you want to switch later, you can, but it costs you an extra rage point to do so. So Frenzy Rage says that you can go into a Frenzy Rage when you rage. You can only use one special rage type at a time, and when in this rage, you can make a single melee weapon attack as a bonus action on each of your turns. Also, your rage while in Frenzy lasts up to 5 minutes instead of the simple 1. Which is a little bit less helpful than it probably sounds. It basically just means that you'll never have to use an extra rage during any battle, even if it's a pretty long one, because 5 minutes is a long time to have to be raging for. But it could come in handy with some, like, maybe athletic style puzzles where you want to be raging the whole time and you're worried that your DM is going to tell you that you'll need to use multiple rage points. Go into a Frenzy Rage and you don't have to worry about that. But the main bulk of this feature is that extra bonus action attack that has no conditions attached. It's just single melee weapon attack as a bonus action. Awesome. Next up, we've got the right half of the Barbarian, but we're going to start with Wild Mind. This says that when you are asked to make a check with Wisdom, Intelligence, or Charisma, you can spend a Rage to use Strength for the check instead of what you would normally use. And the check will still use your proficiency bonus only if you are proficient in that check, but you'll still be attempting it with Strength. So basically, you can be like, oh man, big dumb Barbarian over here needs to make an insight check, but I'm mad, so it works. And it's basically a way for them to be more single ability dependent because they can use Strength for a lot more things. There's the feat that the Barbarian Initiate feat actually works very similar, and I will explain how that works when we actually get into the feat discussion. But for now, let's move further into it. We've got a small tangent over here that starts with an ability score improvement, and then another special rage type. This one unlocks really early, and the reason for that is because in order to kind of play this build that uses this type, you want to unlock it very quickly. It's Ranged Rage. This says that you can go into a ranged rage when you rage. Again, you can only use one special rage type at a time, and when in this rage, you can add your rage damage to ranged attacks and use Strength instead of Dexterity for the attack. Which is so fun. I mean, imagine playing an Archer Barbarian. Now, you might want to take some, like, Ranger levels or something to, like, really make that actually fully, like, vibe work, and you probably aren't going to be playing the most tanky of characters if you're planning on being a ranged Barbarian, but it could be interesting, and it does lend itself to a unique Barbarian play experience that most people haven't experienced before. And of course, afterwards we can pick up another +1 to our rages per day. If you are going to be running low on those for any reason, this might be one of the reasons, you can pick this up also. Afterwards, we can grab another +1 to our rage damage, all the way up to 5 right now, which, mind you, is a lot already on every attack to be doing 5 extra damage, but we have sunk a lot of levels into the Barbarian. Afterwards, let's grab Mighty Saves. This is a really nice feature, and honestly one that I would not see some players wanting to pick up, although it doesn't necessarily come up as much as you'd probably want it to. It says when making death saves, you can add your Constitution modifier to the roll. Not a bad feature, but death saves usually means you're already in a really bad position, so I don't necessarily say that this is a great feature, a great node to pick up, but it is not bad by any stretch of the imagination. It is really helpful when we finally get to the capstone of this path in a second here. But first, let's grab another rage per day. Grab Relentless, which says that when you drop to 0 hit points while you're raging and you don't die outright, you can make a DC 10 Constitution saving throw. If you succeed, you drop to 1 hit point instead, and each time you use this feature after the first, the DC increases by 5. When you finish a short or long rest, the DC resets to 10. So basically, it starts at 10, it'll go to 15 after your first death, 20 after your second, 25 after your third. It eventually gets to the point where you're not making the save, but the more you make it, the more you just keep on chugging, which is really cool, especially for, like, flavor-wise. The Barbarian is definitely the type of character that just wants to, I won't die ever, no matter what. Next, we'll pick up another feat, and then we can grab Unwilling to Die. This says that when a spell is used to resurrect you from death, the spell does not require any material components. So your cleric no longer needs to give you any of those expensive diamonds when they cast resurrect on you. You just come back, just the spell slots, all that matters, which is super good and means that you don't need to be quite as scared about dying. After that, we'll pick up an ability score improvement, and then our third special rage type, Undying Rage. Now this is slightly nerfed from the regular Zealot Barbarian, but again, it's because of the fact that all of these can be picked up kind of together, so I had to kind of nerf some of them and buff others to make them all kind of work together. That's why the Bear Totem Barbarian over here, this section, has also kind of been nerfed in the sense that you have to take a bunch of levels to get to the point that only taking 3 would have taken typically. But it's because you can mix and match them together. Undying Rage says that you can go into an Undying Rage when you rage. Again, you can only use one special rage type at a time, and while in this rage, if you drop to 0 hit points, you do not activate Relentless. Instead, you continue fighting as normal. And then after failing 3 death saves, you then fall unconscious and must fail another 3 death saves to finally die. But basically, you gotta die once, and then you can actually die again. Notably, at any point during that time when you're failing those 3 death saves, you take any healing, you reset your death saves, and you now have to die again before you can actually die again. I know I said die a lot, but basically, you're really hard to kill when you're in an Undying Rage. And the best part about this is, if you take Undying Rage, but you wanted to be a Ranged Rage Barbarian, use Ranged Rage until you are really low on health, and then spend your bonus action to switch into Undying Rage, and spend a Rage Point. Because, again, you can do that as a bonus action. And now you get all the benefits of the Undying Rage without having to actually worry about wasting your cool rage abilities until you actually need them. And the final little section here, this is my favorite section because I love spellcasting, but we'll start with the +1 rage per day and take a tangent here to grab a Danger Sense. This is honestly a pretty good evasive ability that I can see a rogue maybe picking up because it's not bad. It says that you have advantage on dexterity saving throws against effects that you can see, such as traps and spells. To gain this benefit, you can't be blinded, deafened, or incapacitated. Pretty good, honestly. That's just like really good. Next, we'll grab ability score improvement and grab Angry Concentration. This is the start of the magical barbarian route that you can take. Angry Concentration says that you may now concentrate on spells while raging. Basically, if you were concentrating on a spell before raging, you can keep concentrating on it while you begin raging. You cannot cast spells while raging still, but you can concentrate. So it's kind of like Druid Wild Shape, where you could cast Lightning Bolt before going into your Druid Wild Shape so that you can keep using it while Wild Shaped. It's basically the same thing. Basically, you could cast something like maybe Spirit Shroud on yourself so that you get extra damage on everything, go into a rage, and then concentrate, keep your concentration on that while you're making attacks with it. Pretty cool. Notably, you never get any spell slots on the Barbarian, so you'll need to be multi-classing or subclassing into something that actually grants you that, or take a few feats that might help out with that, but in general, it's not a terrible idea. If we go further into this, though, we get the even better feature, starting with a proficiency bonus increase, another rage per day, and then magic rage. This is my favorite feature of the Barbarian, and something that I thought was necessary if I was going to be making this system. In fact, this idea was the whole reason I made this entire system. I wanted to be able to cast spells as a Barbarian, and while I was trying to make a subclass that worked, that wasn't overpowered, but also wasn't just because at first I was trying to think oh, I'll just do the Eldritch Knight style, but for Barbarian, or the Arcane Trickster, but Barbarian instead. And as I was doing it, I was like, oh, it just doesn't really work the way I want. I almost want to just say you have to multi-class to make the subclass work, but it didn't gel well with me. So I thought of this, and then I was like, well, if I'm going to make the Barbarian, I might as well make every other class, and then I made every Pathfinder class, and then I made even more class. Anyway, Magic Rage says that you can go into a magic rage when you rage. Again, you can only use one special rage type at a time, and while in this rage, you are not hindered from casting spells while raging. You still cannot concentrate on spells unless you have Angry Concentration, although, notably, you basically need Angry Concentration to get Magic Rage, but that part of the note is basically referencing the fact that you could get this off the push feat without picking up Angry Concentration. But in general, you can kind of ignore that part for the basic understanding. So this now brings us to the cool portion of the Barbarian, where you can play a main class Barbarian that split levels the whole way with Wizard as their subclass and be a raging Wizard spellcaster and have a ton of health, use Constitution as your spellcasting modifier, and just be awesome. It takes a while to come online because, again, you need to get to Magic Rage before any of your spells are going to be working. Angry Concentration will get you some of the way there by being able to, cast some concentration spells like Polymorph or Haste on yourself and then go into a Rage. But once you get into Magic Rage territory, you're going to be, making a ton of spellcasting abilities while having all of the fun Barbarian features. Is super cool, and honestly, I would love to play this character. Next, we'll pick up Enraged Running because we still have one more special rage type to discuss. Enraged Running says that when you use your bonus action to rage, you may also move up to half your speed as part of the same action. If you want even more speed, by the way, fast movement can help out with that. This says that your speed increases by 10 feet while you aren't wearing heavy armor. Notably, you aren't wearing heavy armor if you're playing a Barbarian because you can't use rage if you're wearing heavy armor, which means you're not wearing heavy armor. So this is basically just plus 10 to your movement speed. We can also pick up Rage Recovery over here, which says you now recover all uses of rage on a short rest instead of a long rest, which is probably not the most useful thing on most Barbarian builds. In fact, you'll probably be having way too many rage uses already. I mean, most people don't have 4 combats per day, but even if you did, right now we have like 6 uses of rage per day. So why would we ever need this? Well, when we get to Berserk Rage, you'll understand why. We also have a proficiency bonus over here to pick up, and then Feral Instinct. You have advantage on initiative rolls. Additionally, if you are surprised at the beginning of combat, but aren't incapacitated, you can act normally on your first turn, but only if you enter a rage before doing anything else on that turn. So it gets that idea of like, oh, I can't be surprised because I'll just go into a rage if I ever get scared. And the final node we'll pick up is the Berserker Rage, which I also think is really fun and kind of fulfills the like Paladin Smite style Barbarian without having to pick up Paladin levels, which again, not a bad choice either, especially with my Paladin, which doesn't, require the bonus action to cast Smite, and it does not count as a spell, which means that Barbarians can get this without having to pick up Magic Rage. But Berserker Rage says is that you can go into this Berserk Rage when you rage. Again, you can only use one special type at a time, but when in this rage, at the start of your turn, you may declare a number of rage uses you would like to expend to increase the 2-hit and damage numbers of all attacks you make on that round by 3 per rage spent. So let me break that down for you because it is a little bit complicated. Basically, say you have 6 uses of rage per day. You use 1 to go into your Berserker Rage, you have 5 remaining. On your turn, you could say spend 2 to increase all of the attacks you make that turn by an extra 6 to hit and to damage number for every attack. So say you've got, the typical Barbarian setup of 2 attacks per turn, you'll be doing an extra 12 damage if both hit, and both are very likely to hit because your to hit number is +6, and you're probably doing it with advantage because of reckless attack. But you could also say drop 3 rage uses into it to make it 9 instead of 6, or drop 4 into it to make it 12 instead of that, or go all in, shove all of your rage uses into 1 round of combat and get that +15, which is awesome. Anyway, that's all I got for Barbarian on the skill tree, but we of course gotta check out some feats that can really assist with this thing. And I've gotta say, there is a lot of feats that help the Barbarian out, so let's go check them out. Notably, the skill feats aren't necessarily the most useful on Barbarian because most of the time you're leaving that like style of play to the utility characters and maybe the wizard spells or other, spellcaster in your party's abilities. But there are a few that aren't the worst, starting with Enduring, which says at level 1 you'll get a +1 to your constitution and your first level of exhaustion won't affect you. Subsequent levels of exhaustion act as if they were the level before them. The level 2 of it is +1 in Constitution, another +1, so that's a +2 in total if you take both of these, and you cannot die of exhaustion, but instead you'll fall unconscious at 0 hit points, but stabilized. So, a little bit more niche, but again, that +1 in Constitution is pretty nice, so I can see you taking this for the flavor win. The other one that I think is really useful, especially paired with Toughness, is Impressive. This at level 1 says increase the chosen ability score by 1 to a maximum of 20. You gain proficiency in saving throws using the chosen ability. I would love to recommend Strength here, although that would see that the saving throw will be useless and redundant because you already have Strength, like saving throw proficiency. But perhaps if Barbarian isn't your main class but just a side class, this isn't a bad way to get your Strength saving throw proficiency bonus and a little bit of a bump. But notably, if you take this 2 more times, you take this feat at 2 more times when you can take a feat to get all the way to its level 3, the level 2 of course increases the max of the chosen ability score by 1, and the 3 increases the chosen ability score by 1, and then also increases the max of the chosen ability score by 1, which means that in total you could bring your Strength all the way to a max of 22, in combination with Toughness bringing it to a max of 24, which is awesome. But again, you'll be missing out on the saving throw proficiency that the first level grants by doing this. So, just food for thought. I'm not going to talk too much about the spellcaster feats here because, again, you'll only be wanting to pick these up if you're playing that magical rage barbarian. Otherwise, ritualist isn't the worst if you want to grab ritualist so that you can not have to spend spell slots. But again, it's probably not the best play because you won't be using spells during combat unless you're a magic raging barbarian. Warden Initiate, when we finally get to the Initiate feats, is something I will recommend though. It says that whenever a creature you can see uses a legendary action, you regain your reaction. Notably, if you've taken the retaliation ability on the barbarian that gives you a reaction attack whenever you're attacked, Warden Initiate basically says that whenever a legendary creature uses a legendary action to attack you, you are guaranteed to get your reaction back so that you can retaliate. And then if they spend another legendary action to attack you again, you get to retaliate again. And it basically gives you your own legendary reaction whenever a legendary creature uses their legendary reaction, because you'll be recharging that retaliation ability. Again, this isn't as good if you're not taking retaliation, but it is such a nice feature that I just thought I'd bring it up. And of course, Barbarian Initiate is also really good on the Barbarian. You can take this up to 3 times. It's the same thing every single time, but it says you get to choose a skill and you now use Strength instead of its normal stat for rolls with that skill. So say you wanted to be really good at history checks, but you dumped intelligence. Well, now you can still be good at history, even though you're dumb as, like, a barbarian, I don't know how you're going to flavor that to work. Maybe you just say, like, oh, my barbarian knows history because he fought in a lot of battles using Strength. And so he, somehow that works for you. The flavor is all up to you to figure out how you want it to work. And I'm sure that you guys can think of some really fun ways to make flavorful decisions for how Strength is used instead of wisdom for something or dexterity for something. But in general, barbarians really like using Strength for things. So being able to pick this up to 3 skills is super fun. Going on to the martial feats, basically every martial feat is good on the barbarian. If you want to use any weapon in specific, like if you want to be a polearm barbarian, grab polearm master. If you want to be a scythe wielding barbarian, grab superior cyclist. Want to wield a sword? Go sword master. Want to be hitting them with a big club? Blunt bruiser. Basically, play the barbarian you want to play and pick up the feat that helps your weapon be better. And same for the second half of the martial feats. Again, they're all really good on barbarians because barbarians are basically like fighters that are mad. Now, I talked about it a few times during the main section, but the push feat is, of course, always useful for almost every class, but I especially think it's interesting because the push feat is actually useful to take on Barbarian to grab a node in Barbarian without having to actually increase this. For example, if you are playing that Wizard Barbarian build, but you don't want to do the Mage Rage thing, you can use 3 of your feats to grab, push up to 3 times, not only pushing your Barbarian even further into the direction you actually want to go, but then you can use the 3rd section to take a disconnected node from anywhere on any tree from any class and grab the Mage Rage like that. Or, if you're playing a fighter and you use this to grab the extra crit range, this is a great way to grab that. Basically, the push feat, 3 levels of push, is a great way to grab any niche feature from any class that really helps with your character. And I think the Barbarian is a shining case of having a ton of really cool features that aren't necessarily the best to pick up by going Barbarian, because sometimes you're playing like a Ranger and you don't feel like the Rage is really the way you want to play your Ranger. But being able to take the push feat to grab one of those abilities that you wanted anyway can allow you to grab it without having to take Barbarian levels. And even though you can do that on any class, for any class, with any character you're making, I just thought I'd bring it up here because I think Barbarian is a shining example of a class that offers a lot for that. I think the Barbarian is one of my favorite, and like I said at the beginning of the video, it is my favorite martial class in the base game. I do like a few of the other ones better now that this system is complete, but I still love the Barbarian. I have a special spot in my heart for the guy that runs in protecting his allies by just absorbing damage constantly. But that's all I got for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you want to vote on the next character that I'll be talking about, you can do so in the comments below, or by joining my Discord, which is linked in the description of the video. I've got some weirder ones for you this time. Up for vote first is the Valkyrie. This is a class blessed by angels that allows you to drop into a Valkyrus form that allows you to not only fly, but bless your allies around you by buffing them and protecting them. Although while you're doing so, you can't attack because attacking could cause you to lose your wings. Or we could check out the Warden. This is a full spellcaster that is all about locking down your opponents, not allowing them to use any of their abilities. Think counterspell everything. A super interesting way of looking at it and super useful in a spell-focused campaign. Or we could check out the Commander. This is the class that is the martial equivalent of the Bard, although instead of being inspiring with your humor, they're inspiring with their commanding shouts, their ability to rally their group of party mates and help them deal extra damage and use extra mobility and actions by spending their actions to give their team extra abilities. Thank you for watching. I hope you really enjoyed the video. If you did, I would love if you left me a like or subscribe to the channel for more. But anyway, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.